Hi, it's Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome to Career Coach Office Hours. This is the last show I'm doing at 9:15 a.m. Beginning Tuesday, I switched to a 1 p.m. time on Tuesdays and Fridays. I just found the West Coast people were writing to me to say it was just too early for them to attend the show, so I've adjusted the hours to 1 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays and Fridays. And I hope some of you folks on the West Coast can come. During these shows, I spend time answering questions about job search, hiring more effectively, management, leadership, and a bunch of other things. So I'll just simply say if you've got a question about these topics, put it into chat. If between shows you have a question, you can always email it to me at thebiggamehunter@gmail.com. And in the subject line, just put the phrase office hours. This way I know what it's about and can respond more, get myself organized for the show, because people do send me questions, which I love to answer. So I'm feeling a little off today. I'm not sure exactly why, but I am. And I'm hoping I can make it through a decent amount of your questions. So let me just start off, as I always do, with a coffee toast to those of you who care about doing great work. It matters to you. You're someone who puts in effort and you care about doing a good job. So a quick toast to you. And at 1 o'clock, I wonder if I'm going to do coffee toasts anymore. No matter. I've got a bunch of questions I've received in advance of the show. And again, if you've got a question for me, put it into chat. If it's about job search, hiring better, management, leadership, or you want some advice about a particular workplace issue. Also, I'll just remind you, my website has a ton of great content. And you can schedule time for a free discovery call, a coaching session. As I said, the blog has a ton there. You can find out about my books and courses. I've got one about an interview framework that is very, very effective, about how to prepare for final interviews. And there's a one about salary negotiation mistakes. And there are more coming. I'm working on one about starting a new position. Then you can also subscribe to JobSearchTV.com on YouTube and on Amazon. And my podcast, No BS Job Search Advice Radio, is #1 in Apple Podcasts for job search. It's also available as a video podcast on Spotify, on Amazon Music, Google Play, or wherever you listen to podcasts. So with that, let's go to the questions I received. Not as many as I sometimes get, but a good number of questions. How should I answer the interview question, how are you different from other candidates? What a moronic question. I've got to say that right off the bat. What do you really expect to learn from most people? They're going to wind up being kind of ordinary in the course of how they present themselves. They're all going to say things like team player, leadership. They're going to talk about fluffy things. If I were you trying to answer this question, I would talk about something personal. I would talk about your background and how you got to this place and how it has affected you and helped to cultivate you into the person you are professionally. So in my case, I might talk about, I grew up in New York in the Bronx, and I'm someone who always had to put in effort to be effective. And whereas other people would give up or switch topics, I had a degree of perseverance to what I did. I think that came from my playing sports, but I bring that into the workplace, that determination to get great results. It doesn't mean there are things that you shouldn't walk away from. I just want to be clear. I've learned those lessons too. But I think what makes me a little bit different, beyond simply the skills and what have you, is what I bring from my life as well that allows me to be an effective person for you. And what that does is engages you in a unique conversation with the person who's interviewing you. Remember, it's not just what you say that matters, it's how you say it. And you have to convey sincerity as you answer that question. So that's the way I would approach it. I think it would help you a lot. What are 3 things that hiring managers would prefer that you didn't know? I'm just going to say answer with one. And the one thing they don't want you to know is why the last 4 people who sat at the desk that they're going to ask you to sit at, why they left. After all, do you think you're the only person who's ever sat there? No, of course not. Other people have been in that job and have left. They don't want you to know why they left, why they became frustrated. They may not have been the manager for them, but they may have been. And the result winds up being, if they were the manager, they don't want you to know how it was that they frustrated this person, how they didn't get rid of the friction that interfered with them doing a great job, and a bunch of other things. So that's what they prefer you not to know. What are the signs that the recruiter didn't like me during the interview? An abrupt ending. They don't sell to you at the end. My thing is the more they talk, the more they like you. So when they're talking to you about what's going to happen next and what the work is going to be like and what the team is going to be like, that's a good sign. However, if they don't take the time to offer that up to you, it's because they don't care. It doesn't matter. You've been rejected. So I think these are more questions for hiring managers. Recruiters, I'm going to answer this about corporate recruiters. They want to hear that you're a square peg for a square hole. That is, they have a list of skills that they want someone to have, and you need to have them, and make it easy for them to find out that you have those experiences. Beyond that, it's really the hiring manager that's going to make a decision. How can I hire great freelance talents over mediocre ones? At times I see questions and they are bizarre to me. So, what makes one person great and another one mediocre? Because that mediocre one could be great to someone else. So, to some degree, it's subjective, and to some degree, it's based upon the need that you have. After all, if you ask me to do graphic design, I can't do it. But if you ask me to do coaching, I'm world class at it. So, what makes someone a great talent versus a mediocre one? You have to define that for yourself, and that becomes the launch point of the conversation with them. Then from there, you set down criteria of how you're going to evaluate people. That's going to determine whether or not they meet those criteria. Do you need them to work in-house or with your people? Thus, their relationship skills become important. On and on and on. You can dissect it and identify those qualities that I think will make you select a particular person over another. Now, I did an article for Brains Magazine. I think it came out earlier this week, and I'm going to see if I can find it. Hiring the right people. I think the concept applies here as well. And I'm going to put a link to it in the show notes so it's visible. But it's a good article that starts off with the premise that most of you have a lazy approach to interviewing. And the result winds up being that you use predictable questions that most people can do homework for to find the right answers. By the way, the title of the article is Hiring the Right People. So here I lay out a number of different ways where you can be better at your selection process. And it starts off with not asking the question, tell me about yourself or walk me through your background. The same thing is going to apply here with hiring a freelancer. You have to be clear about what it is that you're looking for in the way of an expertise and how you're going to evaluate for it. Whether the ability to relate to other people is going to be important to you or not, and how you're going to have your team and yourself evaluate for them. This is really how it's going to come down, which is going to differentiate one person from another and help you select someone who's going to be great for you. My employer is merging with another company. I'll be moving from salary to hourly. The new company is taking my salary and dividing it by 42 hours per week instead of 40. Is this typical? The entire setup is not typical. The entire setup of them switching you from an annual salary to an hourly salary is not the typical way to go. What they tend to do is leave well enough alone for a period of time and figure out who they want to keep is the truth of it. Switching to hourly, you probably lose benefits, right? And thus, it's not only just the 40 hours, it's the loss of benefits that occurs too. So recognize that and try and do things that are going to allow you to, I'm going to tell you point blank, start looking for something else because they're not invested in you. You're just a commodity to them, and you want someone who values you appropriately. Switching from 40 to 42 hours, knowing that you're going to have to pay benefits, it's not right. Now, if you're someone who's working 60 hours a week, well, before when you were an annual salaried person, you probably weren't paid for those additional hours. Now you will be. But if you're just someone who's doing your job, you're taking a pay cut here and you're losing benefits, and it's not right. I would consult a state agency, like in New York, I know it was called the Department of Labor, and just get advice from them about whether this is something you can accept and whether it's legal. I don't know that it is legal or isn't legal, but I just think it's something to look into with someone who would know. I'm just going to remind you to put your questions into chat. I'd be happy to answer them for you. Okay? Got a few more today. Actually, I may cut it short after one question because I'm not feeling well. So I want to build a new website for a restaurant. Should I hire a freelance web developer or should I just build it with WordPress or Wix? How about you hire a freelance person to build it with WordPress or Wix? I'm going to work with the assumption you're not a web developer. It takes work to get it right and to look well. Pay someone to do it on one of these two platforms. It will be so much easier for you. And then learn from them how to maintain it. Work it into your pricing that you want them to teach you and to be on call for you to answer your questions that will allow you to what's it called? I told you I'm not feeling myself. Make your own changes instead of relying upon them. So, excuse me for cutting this one short. I'll be back on Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. I'm Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter. Hope you enjoyed today's show. If you're watching on YouTube, share it, click the like button, do something that lets people know it was worthwhile. Same thing on LinkedIn. Share it, leave a comment. Do things that let people know that watching this is worthwhile. Also, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/IN/the Big Game Hunter. Also, visit my website. The blog will help you a lot. You can schedule time for coaching, find out about my courses, books, and guides, and of course, subscribe to JobSearchTV on YouTube and No BS Job Search Advice Radio in Apple Podcasts and a variety of other places. Have a terrific day, and most importantly, be great.